This video is on increasing and decreasing functions, which is going to be a very short video. So as you can see this diagram, this is going to be really helpful for us in order to understand the meaning of increasing and decreasing functions. So as you can see the definition, a function f is increasing on on an interval I if f of x1 is less than f of x2 whenever x1 is less than x2 in I. So what does this mean? Basically, all it is saying, as you can, for example, consider the curve from point A to point B, right? So in this portion of the curve, for any x value that just pick any x value, any random. I'm, for example, going to pick this x value here. So it's here, right? And now if you pick another x value, the second x value, let's say the x value that is above that, is always more than that, right? Because if you just go more to the right in the interval a to b, the second x value that you choose is always greater than the first x value. Again, that is, you just start moving to the right side, right? So, and if that's the case, so if you just pick any x value and then that is bigger than the second x value, as long as you are just going to the right side, and at the same time f of x1 is less than f of x2, then you have an increasing function. And this should be true for all the x values in that specific interval. For example, in the interval from point A to point B, again, as you can see, the function is increasing because if you choose any x value that is greater than the other x value, the function at those values is just going to follow that. So again, if for example x1 is less than x2, then f of x1 is less than f of x2. And now if so you consider the definition of decreasing function, it's very similar to this one, but with a slight difference. That is, a function is called decreasing on I if f of x1 is greater than f of x2 whenever x1 is less than x2 in I. So for let me highlight this with a different color. So for the decreasing function, consider the curve from point B to C. Now this time, if let's call this point let's call this, I don't know, x3, and then this point x4. Again, as you can see, x4 is greater than x3, but f of x4 is less than f of x3. If you just look at the graph and look at its y value, and that's the case. So that's the situation you should remember. And yeah, as you can see, it's a very simple concept. And all you have to remember is that these conditions will hold only if this is true for all the x values. So again, for example, if you consider this highlighted bit for the decreasing function from point B to C, as you can see, this condition holds for all the x values. So whenever the second x value is greater than the first one, the value of the function is the other way around. So if x4 is greater than x3, then f of x3 is greater than f of x4, because that's a decreasing function at that in that interval. And same thing holds. So just to give you an example, so that to understand one last thing before I finish this video. So consider this graph, which we are very familiar with. That's the quadratic function. Now the problem here is that you can't say that if this is you can't say this is a decreasing or increasing function, because it's neither of them. And the reason is simply the fact that if you consider the entire graph, I'm talking about the entire graph, and imagine that, let's say you have picked this point and let's call it x1, and then you have picked this point, let's call this x2. So obviously x2 is x2 is less than x1 because that's a negative number, but x1 is a positive number. But f of x2 is greater than f of x1. So now, based on the conditions that we saw here on top, actually, this should be a decreasing function, but it's not, as you can see, because this green bit of the curve is an increasing, let's say increasing curve, but the function is decreasing here. But the idea is that this concept for this curve only works for this function only if you define the interval, right? Because if we were not to define any intervals and just say that, okay, because x is less than x1, then this quadratic curve is decreasing, then that is wrong, because we should define that. Yeah, sure. In the interval, for example, from let's say 0 to positive infinity, obviously, yeah, this bit is always increasing. The curve is increasing. Or from minus infinity to 0, again, you could say that it's decreasing. But if you don't, define the interval, then yeah, so it's not neither of them. So yeah, it's neither of them, and that's the main takeaway from this video. So it should always work for all the numbers in the interval. Yeah. So that's it for this video, and it's not actually as short as I thought it would be, but I hope this video helps, and make sure to like and subscribe for the future videos. Good luck.